working on other stuff. It's been on this and the various projects we've done. And along the way, I wanted some of those projects in the middle to be the ideas that I had, to be these shorts and skits and stuff that I wanted to make. I really thought they'd be good ideas, but getting the budget or the time required to make my stuff and my ideas in there, it wasn't as prioritized as these other ideas that didn't end up working out anyways. And so ultimately a year goes by where I haven't worked on anything that I've really wanted to do. I enjoyed some of the stuff during the time, but when you do something and then it doesn't work or gets canceled or we stop, it's not very satisfying. So a year goes by of working on a bunch of stuff that never really goes anywhere. And then finally working on this music video, the last several months of my life have just been focused on this music video. My mental health has been at an all-time low because my entire existence revolved around this project that I wasn't that excited about because I was excited to do animation. And here I was responsible for everything and no time to animate. There's stuff in the music video that's just raw motion capture data, not even cleaned up, just pumped into the engine. I was learning Unreal Engine for the first time. I didn't know how to do a lot of the stuff we were doing. So I learned a lot, and I'll make a video talking about my experience on this project, not to complain, but just to share all the stuff I learned, good and bad. But on this music video, I wanted to be the animator. I wanted to be responsible for making amazing animations and finally showing what I could do. And I think I got 10 hours total to animate anything. So there's a few hand keyed moments with legs kicking and nothing really happening because that's all I had time for. I'll tell you what happened next, but first, what I learned from all of that, I learned a lot about myself actually, that I am not the best manager of people. It's not a skill that I have really developed and I don't enjoy it. Maybe I'll be good at it one day, but right now it just doesn't feel like something I'm particularly great at. If I'm in charge of a project, I would prefer a flat role hierarchy where everybody knows what's going on and everybody can contribute and help and collaborate in different ways, instead of me being the bottleneck, where everybody has to kind of come through me to have stuff happen. That definitely wasn't my favorite, especially with the weird hybrid remote thing we had going on where some of us are in Utah, I'm in California, we had other people international. Remote stuff works just fine, but we didn't really plan for it, so we didn't really have a plan for how we were gonna deal with it. And there were certain people in the process that I didn't feel like I was allowed to work directly with. Not with the creative people that I was bringing on, but just in general, there just kind of were weird invisible barriers that may or may not have actually been real, but just, it didn't feel like a flat, open, collaborative environment. It felt kind of segmented in the way that the creative work had to be done. I also learned that I'm a much better narrative filmmaker than abstract storyteller. I can make a short film and stuff like that, but music videos, not my strong suit. Once again, I thought it'd be one piece, not in charge of all of it. But one of the major lessons that I learned is that as someone with animation production experience, I should have stood my ground and stood firm on, this is what we're doing, here's how we're doing it, and we're not moving forward until we have these things. Now that can sound like I was I shouldn't have been a team player. No, my team needed me to step up and be in charge and say, here's how it's gonna go. At the beginning, I was very nervous. I didn't want to step on toes. I didn't want to overstep my boundaries. And so I sort of let a lot of stuff happen and say, oh, we should do this. Well, do we need that? Well, I think so. Well, let's see if we can go without it. No, I should have said, no, we need this, period, and we can't move forward without it. Even if it costs more, even if it seems like it's maybe not the best investment, we do need this to happen. I should have been sort of the strong voice in the room to make those calls because it would have saved us a lot of time, energy, and money down the road. Again, there's no finger pointing or blame shifting here. What I'm trying to say is that I am an artist who understands business, and my business partner is a business person who doesn't really understand art. He's not super passionate about animation. So there should have been a more clear split of what I'm responsible for versus what he's more responsible for, and we should have communicated that earlier on so that we could have just made these things happen. When the project was finally done, and I mean finally, I cannot express to you how relieved I was to finally be done with this project. Unfortunately, I'm not proud of it. I worked all this time and all this effort on this music video, and I don't even like it at all. Sometimes it just be like that. We made it, it's done, it's off my plate, and that's that. It was at that point that I decided, you know what? This whole experience was a learning experience for both me and for him, and I want to go back to what I originally wanted to do. I want to make my videos, and I want to go work at a studio that I don't have to build. I want to work with people and learn from people, and I don't want to have to be responsible for coming up with how that all gets achieved. I just want to join a team and be a part of something and work on cool stuff. And ultimately we decided that we are much better friends than we are business partners, because the goals and aspirations that I had, they don't have me running a studio. They have me just working on cool stuff, joining a team that's already there that I don't have to build. I just want to be part of a great group of artists that I can learn from and contribute to. And I think my business partner also learned, while a lot of this stuff can be really cool, it's really time consuming and extremely expensive. And neither one of us knew kind of how not the way we wanted was this gonna go down, if that makes sense. And ultimately there was no drama, no bad blood, like we're good. We're still cool, no issues. But we decided to each kind of go back to doing our own things. So to leave you with some final advice, if you are thinking about starting your own animation studio, make sure you pay your artists what they're worth and treat them right. Respect their rates, pay them overtime, and have manageable schedules so you're not burning people out. If you find that you have a lot of high turnover or low repeat freelancers, you are the problem and you need to fix it. Plan everything, document everything, really come up with a good strategy for what you're about to do, all in writing, and get contracts, as you've probably heard before. Especially if you're the artist, even for yourself, write down your goals. If you're gonna work at a studio, what are your goals going into it? What do you wanna get out of it? And evaluate every so often whether you are meeting and achieving those goals. Because everybody involved should have their expectations listed somewhere. What you wanna do, deliverables, creative goals, projects, timelines, budgets, all of that. And at the end of the day, know your why. What is motivating you to work on this thing that you're gonna do? Everybody involved should know their whys, even if they aren't necessarily the same things driving them. My business partner and I had different things motivating us, different whys for what we do, which is ultimately why we decided to just be friends and not business partners, is because we're each motivated by different things, and that makes it difficult to pick one direction and stick with it when we have sometimes different ideas pulling us in different directions. At least on that part, we had good, open, and honest communication. And if you made it this far in the video, I'm assuming you care to know what's next for me. Now that I'm done with that music video, I'm done with this year-long project, this animation studio. We've shut it down. I'm no longer a part of it. I'm back to doing my own thing. Back here on YouTube, weekly uploads, that's all back to normal. The two things I'm resuming are my teaching, animation workshops and courses, things like that. I have a link down below to the Maya workshop that I'm doing right now. And moving towards working at a studio. I'm gonna be doing all the animation stuff that I wanted to do a year ago, demo reel, applying, getting into a place, and working with. I realized something recently. It's been 10 years since I first started learning animation. And when I was just getting into it, I took some community college classes in 3D and Maya, and ultimately ended up dropping out of college and leaving computer science to pursue animation entirely. I went to Animation Mentor online. That's an 18-month program, which I did. So taking that experience and mixing it with the other life skills that I had and the other experiences from jobs and stuff, I ended up landing my job at DreamWorks in the training department as a trainer. At this point, I was 21 years old, full-time working at a major studio when most of my friends were still in college figuring out what they wanted to do and just getting started with internships. Now that's not me bragging. I'll come back to why that wasn't all such a good thing. But when I first arrived, I was a long way from being ready to transition into the animation department, which was my goal. And I had a lot to learn before I'd be hireable as a professional animator. And that's the very short version of the story, but all of that happened very quickly. And somehow I thought that that was because, I'm doing so well. Things are moving so quickly. This is great. I need to keep up this career growth. However, a lot of it bit me in the ass, and I had to relearn a bunch of stuff and unlearn the rest. So let me save you some trouble by telling you the mistakes I made as an animation student. Also, this is different than the 20 things I wish I knew as a beginning animator. That video has a lot of good stuff, but this is more focused on school and career advice, but these go hand in hand, so they're both worth watching. Oh, and I'm also gonna tell you some things I see other people do that drive me absolutely crazy. So, stay tuned for that. I never read the books and I didn't watch all the lecture videos. When I was going to school, every single week we had assignments to do and we had videos to watch. That was how the educational component was doled out. We had weekly meetings with our mentor, but we also had lecture videos. And I watched them for a while, and then eventually, 6 classes, 18 months worth of information, eventually I stopped watching them all. I don't even know if I was watching any of them after a certain point for some reason. And if I did, I'd watch them right before the mentor class would start, so I'd know what we were going to talk about. But I wasn't actually learning the stuff and absorbing the resources and the materials that were available to me. But I was treating animation school like regular school, because regular school, we'd have history homework, we'd have reading to do, we'd have math, and I wouldn't always really do the homework. I wasn't always a great student. So The Illusion of Life, The Animator Survival Kit, I didn't own those books. To this day, I've never read The Illusion of Life, and I've never owned a copy of The Animator Survival Kit until a month ago. I bought it for a video I'm going to be doing, which I know is blasphemy. Everybody's supposed to read those books. They're supposed to be the animation Bibles, right? I never did. And I think looking back at my work from the time, it showed, because I really wasn't applying the information that was available to me. My work wasn't looking that good for a long time, and that's a big reason why. Next was trying to get hired way too early. During classes 2, 3, and 4, there are 6 classes in that curriculum. And it's not until you finish class 6 that you're supposed to have the foundation and the fundamentals all kind of covered to then go make a great demo reel. Class 2, I was just barely learning how to move a character, and I'm trying to get a job at that point. Too early. I was trying to get internships and get hired to sort of take a shortcut to not have to do quite so much school. Why? Who on earth would have hired me? The fact that I thought I was hireable back then, incredible. The confidence. I wish I had that confidence today. School is for learning and work is for working. If you are learning stuff, just do it in a school environment, because imagine I get hired somewhere at that point and I do a bad job because I don't know how to do anything and I get fired. That's gonna make it that much harder to get a job somewhere else. I might have blown my chance to work at that studio. If I had gotten in the door somehow at that studio and they fired me, well, I'm not getting back in for a couple of years at least until they see, okay, he's finally learned. Now this one's interesting because from week to week I was submitting assignments, getting feedback, getting notes, and I was addressing those notes as best as I could. Sometimes it went well, sometimes not so well. But when an assignment was complete, I would hand something in and say, hey, here's the final assignment, and I'd get notes and say, okay, this is close, this is good, we're gonna call it good, move on to the next thing, blah, blah, blah. But if you were to make it better, here are my recommendations. And my mentors would generally tell me how I could make those shots better, how I can improve them. And then they'd give me the next assignment. Well, I would focus on the next assignment and completely ignore the feedback about what I had just done. I wouldn't go back and make it any better. I was still treating it like school, where I was like, oh, I got credit, done.
根拠はない。だが彼らはふと直感した。その全員が10年に1人と言われる天才、奇跡の世代。彼らと同格の選手は存在せず、もし現れたとしてもそれはずっと先のはずだった。彼らが聞いたのは扉の音。その圧倒的天才たちしか入れない部屋の扉がこじ開けられた音。
When I finished Animation Mentor, the end of Class 6, I completed the curriculum. My mentor at the time was a supervising animator at DreamWorks Animation, and he went through at the very end of term and gave me a full review of my entire demo reel up to that point. Every single shot, what was working well, what could be better, what could be improved, and the reel as a whole, what it was missing, what they'd be looking for, the things that, okay, you've got some body mechanics, but we'd like to see this, you know, your facial stuff could use this, da-da-da-da-da. Great feedback, very comprehensive, a roadmap to success of, you know, you're done with school, here are the steps you need to take so that you can apply and get a job. Do these things. Tell me why I didn't take any of that feedback. I went in preparation of this video to look at some of my old stuff from Animation Mentor and say, okay, what was I doing? I found that review. I found my recordings of it because back then it wasn't automatically recorded. I had to record it myself. I found the files. I got that feedback and I'm sure I was like, yeah, I should definitely do this. And I put it away and never looked at it again. None of that feedback ever touched my reel. To be fair, immediately after all this happened, I got hired at DreamWorks in the training department, so I was focused then on my actual job and doing a good job. I wasn't focused on animation, so that's fine. But when I went back to inevitably start working on my demo reel, I never revisited that feedback. I just thought, I'm starting over, it's fine. Like, there was still so much information in there that would have been so good to know. Where to begin? What kinds of new shots to start? So the takeaway from this one is just, when you're given feedback, even if it's optional, take it, apply it, and practice it. I also wasn't getting feedback from my peers. Like, I wasn't engaging in the community around me. Back then it wasn't super lively, but people were still doing it. I was not really participating all that much, and I should have been. Today, the community aspect of the animation community online, it's thriving. Participate, be a part of it. Just, you know, show your work to other people, help other people with their work, just be a part of that community. You will grow so much faster, I promise you. And something to go right along with that is don't be so focused on the mentors and the industry professionals that you think you can network with to grow in your career. Yeah, people who are industry professionals can help you and give you advice, and they can put in a good word for you. Like, that's a thing, sure. I have a whole video on networking and how to do that properly. Watch this video. Seriously, watch that video. But the thing you should be focused on is not the mentors, not the industry pros, but the people around you, your peers, the other students at your level, because you will all help each other, you'll grow together. You're not in competition with them, as much as everyone likes to say that. You are all working collaboratively to grow as a group. It's that thing about like the rising tide lifts all ships or something. That is super true here. It is the people you befriend and the connections that you make and the relationships that you have among your level that as you all grow, some of you will start to find opportunities and everyone's going to want to help each other. That is how things happen. Be a good friend to people and be part of it. When you film reference, just film reference. Don't worry about trying to like build in anticipations and arcs. Like, don't overact your reference to make it more animated. Just film the stuff. Your ability to analyze and pull that kind of stuff out of real life will grow with time and experience. You don't need to be putting it in your animation because then you're tainting the actual mechanics and core of the shot. Here's some reference from my first ever body mechanics piece, and you can see that I am overacting and I'm reaching and I'm doing these arcs and I'm doing all these big actions trying to give myself an easier time once I hit Maya. But I don't need to do all that, and it didn't help me anyways because my actual animation's terrible. It's my first body mechanics shot, so like whatever, it's fine, but it didn't help me. And that's not what you're going to be dealing with on the day-to-day anyway, so don't worry about trying to overdo it. Just analyze what's there. Another thing is, even though today I'm super comfortable in Maya, I know how to do every technical thing that you could possibly want to know how to do with constraints and IK and FK, like I'm really good at that stuff today. I was so afraid of the technical aspects of Maya when I was a student that I would just not animate things that were going to involve those challenges because I was like, I don't want to learn how to do it, I don't want to do it wrong, I don't want to break anything, I'll just do something else. Whether it is IK and FK, constraints, or whatever software stuff, you are going to have to know how to do that at a job, so you may as well learn when you have people to ask for help. I know the technical stuff can be really scary for some people who just, it doesn't come super naturally. You can learn it and it will get easier, but you need to kind of jump in and don't shy away and try to avoid it forever because eventually it's gonna catch up to you. This is a bit of a workflow one. I used to start blocking a shot, but I would get caught up in like the hand or the fingers or the arc or something, and I would start polishing just like one little section. So I'd, set a big key, set a pig key, mix with the foot, and then I'd be like in deep and I'd be adding all these keys, trying to get the toe to work just right. I haven't even finished like a first pass of blocking. The moment I change anything, all of this work was irrelevant. Don't focus so heavily on little details. Focus on the broad strokes of the idea and getting your overall shot just in there. You can do that by either animating your shot in phrases, in chunks, or you can just do like light passes and layer stuff on top. These are different workflows, but either way, the point is to just work and don't get hung up on little things because really that's a procrastination tactic to not have to do the real work. The other thing I would do a lot is I would go to presentations, I'd go to conventions, I'd go to schools and Q&As and all that kind of stuff, guest speaker lectures, and I would take extensive notes, which is good. However, I wouldn't try any of it. I wouldn't put any of it into practice. If I was told by somebody on stage, like, okay, here's how you do blinks, here's how you, blah, blah, blah with the facial animation. So what I recommend you do is animate a blink. Just take a week and just focus on just one eyeball and do the blink. I didn't do any of that. I didn't try it. I was like, yeah, wow, genius. And then I just put those notes to the side and I never touched them again until eventually I was like, I think I have notes on that somewhere. Try to put into practice all the little things you learn as exercises. Like, give it a shot. Try to solidify it in your brain by actually applying that knowledge instead of just sitting on it and assuming you'll remember. And 3 quick things that I covered in the other video, so I'm not going to dive into them too much now. Retaking classes is not a bad or shameful thing. It is probably the best thing you can do. The people I know who have retaken classes when they've struggled, they're way better off for it. Also, procrastinating, or as we like to call it, waiting until I can work under pressure, because I work best under pressure. No, that's a terrible thing to do. Stop that. And again, assignments are for your knowledge. They're not for credit. It's not that you need to check the boxes and just do these things because you're told you need to do them because you get a grade. All of the stuff you do as an animation student is designed to help you grow as an artist. And so if you are just kind of phoning it in, you are not going to get a job any sooner, which is your goal anyway, isn't it? So really take your time to learn the stuff. Sometimes I would not save a lot of time to work on my assignments because I was procrastinating, I was waiting until the last minute, and so I only had time to address all the notes I was given. And so week after week, I would show up having completed the notes and the feedback that I had received, but not really getting to do anything new, anything different. Like the shot wasn't evolving or growing beyond just the stuff I was told to correct. That is no way to work. From week to week or from session to session or whatever speed you're going, you should be hitting all the feedback that your mentor is giving you and then doing more work, adding to it, continuing the animation. It's not just doing what they told you to do, you also have to then progress of your own accord. So do that. Those are the mistakes that I remember making, but let me leave you with some that I see other people making and they drive me crazy. If you're given a note, take the note, understand why it's being given to you, where it's coming from, and try to evaluate, how to implement it. Don't get defensive about it, and please do not try to sit there and explain the choice and talk about it. Well, here's why, I was really thinking. It doesn't matter. The person probably doesn't care because you probably have limited time to talk about your entire shot. So if every time they give you a note, you're going to sit there and try to explain the choices of why you did it and try to justify it, let it go, accept, like, okay, well, it didn't come across. Try something else. There will come a time where maybe you can push back against that feedback when you have a reason for those choices, but if you are in school, it's probably not the time yet. Having to redo parts of your shot, or even the shot as a whole, is part of the job. It's a very normal thing. It's part of the territory. So if you're given a note that's going to break something, like a walk cycle, if you're given a note to change something about the walk cycle and you know it's going to break 5 other things you have going on, don't try to tone down the note and just hit it as much as possible just to not break. Sometimes you have to delete whole sections of your animation. That's just the way it is. I'm not saying you have to like it. I'm not saying you have to be excited about that process, but that is part of being an animator, as much as it kind of sucks at times. And just remember that if you're going to do something over again, you can do it even better the second time, and usually faster too. Please take notes. That is such a huge thing where a lot of people won't take notes. I don't know why. They just assume they're going to remember everything, and nobody ever does. Because I can't tell you how many times I've given advice or given feedback or tried to help somebody with information, and then a week or two or however long later, they come back and say, what was it you said? I don't remember what I was supposed to be doing. Well, why did I spend all that time with you? Write it down. And it's okay if you have, if it's an honest mistake, if you lost the notes, or if you thought you wrote it down, but maybe you missed that part. It's okay when things happen. Sure. But if this is a pattern and you consistently miss stuff or aren't understanding things and you're not taking notes, that's probably a big part of why. It shows that you respect the other person's time and what they're saying enough that you are saying, okay, well, what you're saying is memorable. I would like to remember it. I want to point out that asking questions is not a bad thing. You should absolutely ask clarifying questions. If you don't understand something, if you're not getting it, it's okay to say, I'm not sure I understand. Here's what I am getting. Here's where you're losing me. That's okay to not get it and to have questions. Ask for help. However, on the flip side, there is a limit to the types of questions you can ask or how many you should ask. I'm not saying that there is a number of okay, 5 questions is too many questions. You have to show that you are willing to try before asking. If you're being explained something and you just don't get it, you can ask clarifying questions. If you get stuck somewhere, you're oh, I don't know how to do this thing in Maya, or oh, I'm not sure what this is supposed to look like. The first thing you should do is try to solve the problem. Try to discover a solution on your own, whether it's asking other people, whether it's researching, whether it's reading the books, watching the videos, whatever it is. Use the resources and the internet at your fingertips to try to discover an answer. Don't just automatically say, I don't get it. Can you hold my hand? Can you show me what I don't know what I'm supposed to do? This is your shared responsibility to put in the work yourself to actively learn and participate in your own creative growth. I love helping people with stuff, but you also have to help yourself. Filming reference is also something that you get more comfortable with time. I used to be so uncomfortable in front of a camera, and it would freak me out having to talk to a camera, but obviously now I'm much more comfortable with it. Filming reference is another one of those things that you will get better at with time, and you have to try. It's a skill that you need to develop. You don't necessarily have to love it or be great at it, but you do need to give it a shot in the same way. Because while you can usually ask friends or coworkers or people that you know for help, but hey, can I film you for this thing? Can you help me with reference? Yeah. Sometimes you may not have access to another person, or you can't find what you need online, and you literally have to come up with something yourself. And just remember that you don't generally have to show people your reference. It's for you. It's not to, display to the world. Just because I show reference in my videos doesn't mean you have to be comfortable showing your reference to other people. It is a planning tool, and you should know how to use the tool. This one can be interpreted in different ways because there's many ways to have a bad attitude. You can be mean and grumpy and angry and yeah. I'm mostly talking about being overly negative, self-deprecating, or generally hopeless in your outlook on your career and on things. Nobody wants to work with someone who's constantly killing the vibe. And it's not like you have to be this beacon of toxic positivity, always smiling, always happy. That's not what I'm saying. There is absolutely nothing wrong with feeling negative, feeling self-deprecating, to feeling a bit hopeless. It happens. We're artists, we're creative, we have self-doubt and imposter syndrome in life that make things not always go so well. But try not to dwell on it, as hard as that can be at times. But more so, like, don't like project that at people. That is not the thing you want to lead with. That's not what you want to be known for. I've known people who have been like that, who when I think of them, I just remember all the stuff they would say of, oh, I'm just so bad at this. I'm never going to get it. I've been trying this for so long and it's just the worst and I'm the worst and I'm never going to get a job and, oh, I should just give up, blah, blah, blah. It's okay to feel like that sometimes, but it is good to build better habits, like mentally, to train your brain to pick itself back up and dust itself off and say, ah, that sucks. I need to feel that for a minute. Okay, well, I'm gonna try again. And you gotta find a way to bring some of that optimistic energy in, or no one's gonna wanna work with you. And you're gonna end up just manifesting bad things in your career. You have to believe that good things will come. So that's just one to work on and be mindful of. At the end of the day, there's so much to learn when it comes to animation, and it's very easy to fall into some of these traps, these pitfalls, and to just kind of phone it in. If you want to be a good animator though, and you want to be successful in your career, it takes work, it takes time, and it takes dedication. So try to not do some of the stuff that I was doing for a long time. I have grown. Hey there, I'm Sir Wade, and it's been a minute since I posted a video, but I'm excited to be back, making videos again, and this is one I'm very excited about. Something you probably already know is that animation is not easy. It's challenging, it's difficult, it's time consuming, it can be a huge pain, but it can also be really rewarding. Now, what does not make it any easier are the many questions that you probably have, things that I've wondered, things that everybody has struggled with. And there are answers to those questions. They're kind of hard to find sometimes, but that's what we're gonna do today. We are going to answer those questions. I've got 10 different things that I remember struggling with as I was learning animation, things that I wish I knew sooner, and 10 questions that came from our community, things that you guys are struggling with, things that we've all dealt with that I just figured, let's put it all in one video. Let's save a ton of time here, and let's just share as much stuff as I can, as quickly as I can, so that you don't have to wonder anymore about these things. So, sound good? Cool. Two quick things before we dive in. I'm doing another Maya for Animators workshop, so if you're interested in learning Maya and all that it can do, link below if you want to check it out. And also a big thank you to the sponsor of this video, Autodesk, which is the company that makes Maya, which works out really well. They wanted to support the channel, and they thought that this video would be a nice one that would help a lot of people out there. And if you haven't already downloaded Maya, if you're not already animating in Maya, you can grab it for free. If you're a student, there's an educational license. It's completely unlocked. There's nothing you can't do. People ask that a lot. Or if you're no longer a student and can't grab that version, there's the Maya Indie license, which is less than $300, and that's what I've had for years. It's way more affordable than commercial Maya. Links below to all that, and now let's jump in. If I'm animating pose to pose or a step to key workflow, how come my shot just turns awful every time I hit spline? I feel like I have to redo everything all over again. This is a super common issue. The main problem is that you just don't have enough keys or information in your shot to hold it together. If you have only a couple keys every now and then, a couple poses here and there, once you hit spline, you end up with a lot of interpolation in between that the computer's just gonna kind of smoothly go between. So you're gonna end up with a very swimmy, floaty mess of stuff. Poses that don't really hold and motions that don't really feel like anything because you haven't put enough detail in there. You need to put way, way, way more keys in there. The overshoots, the anticipations, the breakdown, the keys themselves, the holds, all that stuff needs to be put in there so that when you hit spline, the shot doesn't really change, it just gets a little bit smoother. Does that make sense? That's what you're aiming for. Characters have a lot of controls. Which ones am I supposed to be using when I animate? I'll need to do a follow-up video on this probably to show you more in depth, but there were always two answers I got to this question. The first was kind of a catch-all answer, which is, in general, you want to use as few controls as possible when you're starting off, when you're blocking. You don't want to get caught up in the fingers and all the many little intricate controls when you're just trying to get the main idea of your shot blocked out. But beyond that, what controls are you blocking with? That was my question that never really got an answer. It depends on the rig and the character that you're using. There's not like one cookie cutter answer for all the characters, but the thing to look at to find your answer is look at every single control on the character and just start kind of playing with it and messing with it before you start animating. You need to understand how the rig works, but at the very least, like what every control does. Play with them all so you understand. You will probably find that in most characters' torsos, for example, there's a lot of controls there. That's where I always had the big question of like, what am I supposed to use? There's often an FK set of controls and an IK set of controls. If you haven't watched my videos on FK and IK arms, check those out. That'll help. But that applies to the torso too. There are different sets of controls that you might want to use both for certain things, but you also might just want to stick with one set for your basic poses. It'll make your life a little bit easier deciding up front which ones you're going to use. If you want a full video on this topic, let me know down below. So if the camera only sees this much, do I have to animate everything that the camera can't see, like the feet? If you're animating for games and you're going to see the whole character, there's nowhere really to hide. But if you are doing something where the camera only sees a certain portion of the character, in theory, yeah, you don't have to animate the stuff that's off screen. However, in my case, this framing right here, my hips are below the frame. That doesn't mean I shouldn't animate the hips, because if I move my hips, you can see how that impacts my torso. If I shift my weight, the cog might be below the camera. I still need to move that stuff to make it feel like I'm not just stuck here. You don't want it to just move above this point like I'm locked in place. You still need to consider this stuff that's down below the camera. So no, you don't have to animate the stuff that the camera can't see unless it's going to affect the stuff that is there. So the decision is made on impact, not on laziness. What is a production pipeline and how does it work and why do I care? All a pipeline is the path that data needs to go to get passed along different departments to have different things on the assembly line added to it. A model is going to need to get textured, it's going to need to get rigged. That data may go to cycles or crowds or effects or character effects for simulations and so on. The pipeline is just the flow of data through whatever studio you're working at. When you're working by yourself, it's all about what the camera can see. So it's not that big of a deal. You can just do whatever you need to do to make your demo reel shine. But once you start to work with others on a team or on a bigger project, organization is important. The quality of the data can be a thing in terms of, the models need to have a certain edge flow. You need to have made the stuff that you're doing so that it's compatible with later departments. So there's a certain amount of understanding of adjacent departments and communication between those different job roles that becomes very valuable. If you're in school or you're working your way to a job, learning about the adjacent departments is the best thing you can be doing. That way you are ready to start implementing pipeline stuff when the day comes. So I want to put like a glass of water or like wine in my shot, something with liquid. Should I simulate that? Or should I do hair, cloth? Should I do simulation for those things? Unless you're going for an effects job, don't worry about it. And if you are going for an effects job, don't animate and then do the effects and try to make it all like one big shot. You should probably just do animation and then you should do effects separately. More than likely, if you are asking this question, it's at a stage where you shouldn't be worrying about simulations of hair and cloth and water. If I were going to put water in this little water cup here, I would not do a fluid simulation to get all that motion. I would just put like a cylinder in there and then, there's some different deformers and stuff you can do to basically just put a key on the geometry and you can just rotate it. And it'll look close enough. You throw a transparent shader on it, it's fine. If you want to know more about that kind of stuff, you can check out my Maya workshop. But no, you should not be worrying about cloth and hair and all that kind of stuff. That doesn't mean you shouldn't learn that stuff, but if you want to learn it on its own. Don't try to crowd your work with a bunch of experiments. When I make my demo reel or portfolio, shouldn't everything be made by me? Wouldn't that be great if I made all the characters and all the rigs and all the environments I model? If I do everything on screen, that's good, right? Please do not do that. It is not as impressive as you think to have made everything in the demo reel because chances are you're not good at everything. Sorry, none of us are. If you were going for, say, an animation position, then don't make your character. Don't model and texture and rig your character because if you don't do that great of a job, you're gonna have a really hard time making the animation actually good with a bad rig that's unappealing from the start. Allow other people to shine at what they're good at so that you can do your best of what you want to be doing. There's nothing wrong with downloading environments and assets and characters and all that kind of stuff and then animating within that. That's how it's gonna work at a studio. You don't get hired to Pixar and then do everything yourself. You are a part of a team. And even if you work at a smaller studio where you might wear more hats, you're still welcome to do that. But don't try to take it upon yourself to do everything on screen unless it's just for fun. If you do that though, it's probably not gonna be a demo reel piece because most people just aren't hireable for every different hat that you might wear. When should I start applying for jobs? When am I ready to get hired? There's nothing wrong with applying for a job as long as you're professional and you're polite and you're not annoying about it. Feel free to apply whenever you feel like you want to give it a shot. But don't get so focused and fixated on getting a job and getting hired when you should be focused on getting better and actually getting good at the thing you want to be hired to do. The issue is when people are focused so heavily on submitting their application and updating their demo reel and they're trying to, network and all that kind of stuff. All that energy should just go towards making new shots and then just updating your work and then resubmitting after a little bit of time has passed and you feel like you've updated your reel to something fresh and new that best reflects your work. Here's a good kind of litmus test here. If you feel like you have to explain anything on your demo reel, any shot that you have to be like, okay, well, so in this shot, what I was thinking, you've already lost that one. That shot needs to be replaced. Everyone is always so eager to I just want to get a job. I need to get hired. Yeah, the best thing you can do is not to focus on the application process. It's just make your work better. All the job applications say that a degree is required. Is that true? Do I need a degree to be an animator? A lot of parents worry about this one. You don't need a degree to be an animator. It's about the demo reel. It's about the work. Can you do the job? My job at DreamWorks required a degree on paper. I dropped out of school. I didn't finish college. I didn't have a degree. And in my resume, I said that I was a computer science major, but I didn't put a degree. And when I was asked about it in my interview, I said, yeah, I was the major and I went for this long and I did these classes, but I didn't graduate. I don't have a degree. And they said, okay, cool. The experience was useful to them. That did matter in my resume that I had the experience. But again, it's experience. It's not about the certificate, the piece of paper. No one cares. Can you do the job? But because I will not be responsible for anybody's choices here, these are my opinions. You make your own minds. The other thing I do need to say is, as a US citizen who works in the US, I don't have to worry about visas. So degrees really don't mean anything to me. But if you are an international artist and you want to work in the US or in another country, getting a work visa can be tricky. I am aware of how awful that system can be, and degrees may or may not help with that process. Where should I go to school for animation? This is one that I have to be very careful answering. I have a lot to say about schools, and I have a video that I've been wanting to make that I have to involve my lawyer in to make sure I don't get in trouble. Your animation education is extremely important. Going to a specific college, school, or university, not as important, because again, the degrees don't matter. It's about what you learn and what you can do. A lot of schools, in my opinion, charge a lot of money and give you next to nothing. I know a lot of people who have gone to certain schools and they've finished it and they have crazy debt and they go, well, that was a waste. If I could go back and do it again, I would not do that. I would go here, or I would do this, or I would XYZ. Because I don't want to comment on the specifics of that. What I will say is there are a lot of great schools. The ones I recommend are some great online schools. Animation Mentor is great. Animation Collaborative is great. AnimC. I have links to those down below. If you go to Animation Mentor, by the way, tell them I sent you. We have a referral thing. Thank you. But it's not really important where you go to school. It's just that you learn what you need to learn and that you can apply that stuff in your work. So my advice to you is to think very critically about how much you are putting in and what you are getting back. Find people who went to that school and ask them once they've finished how they liked it, if it was worth it. Do they have any friends that you can talk to? Do you have a group of them that you can all kind of chat and get their thoughts? Because you are going to hear a much more honest perspective from people who have gone through it than from the marketing teams at these major colleges. Or, click my link and check out my workshops because they are good. So at what point do I need to move to LA or Vancouver? Like, where all the jobs are, do I need to move there to get hired? So I'm from Southern California originally. I grew up not far from LA. And years ago, when I decided I'm going to move into LA, it was very much that thing of like, I'm going to move into LA where animation is. I'm going to be, networking events and conventions. I'm going to go to coffee shops. I'm going to find drawing things, and I'm going to meet animators and artists, and I'll be part of this community. And it'll be so easy. I'll get a job. I'll immerse myself in the culture. That was the thought. And none of that happened. Absolutely none of it. Artists don't go outside. Everyone stays inside. No one goes out and socializes. Are you kidding? Moving to LA or any city to be where the jobs are is generally not a very good idea because it's expensive. It will drain your account way more than you think it will. You have to save up 3 to 5 times more than you think you do, and then it will drain that in half the time that you expected it to. You can apply from anywhere, and you can save a lot of money usually by doing that. Something that can be nice is some studios will offer relocation benefits. If they want you to work at a certain place, sometimes they will help you move and they'll pay your way. That is less likely if you are very new to the industry. It's probably not going to happen compared to someone who's a lot more established and really desirable and say, whatever it takes to get you out here, we want you. Kind of depends. You're also not supposed to be able to discriminate on hiring practices based on location, because in theory, anybody could show up for work. I have witnessed things that allegedly would not be in line with that. So my recommendation is if you have a resume or something, don't put your address, don't put your location, just apply to the jobs and see where the conversation goes. And if someone says, hey, like the job is here in person in 2 weeks, can you be here? Then hopefully your answer is yes. That's all there is to it. So those are 10 questions that we've all had. Now, rapid fire for 10 more things that I wish I knew sooner. Let's do this quickly because this video is longer than I thought it would be. Speed is not a good thing when it comes to school. That doesn't mean you shouldn't animate fast if you can. Like, sure, like speed is important at the job, but rushing through school to get to the job is a terrible idea. I did that. I had the idea, like normal school, like, okay, I don't want to get held back. I don't want to get stuck. I just want to move through the thing as fast as possible. If I finish this course in 18 months and I get a job in 18 months, that's not how this works. Animation is not like normal things. You do have to take the time to make sure you understand the material, and so rushing through for speed is not going to help anybody. Take your time, learn what you need to, retake classes if you have to, redo workshops that you didn't really get the handle of. The only person you're in competition with is yourself. So give yourself your best chance and take your time, really absorb and apply every single thing you learn. If you don't heed this warning, you will end up just struggling way more than you have to, and you'll realize that the solution is to just go back and redo it anyways. So just save yourself the time and the heartache and just take your time, learn the stuff. My assignments were always due Sunday morning at noon, and come Friday afternoon, it's go time. I have not touched it all week. Friday afternoon, into the night, all day Saturday, no breaks, no naps, no food, just keep working all night Saturday night and submit 3 minutes before the deadline. That's a horrible way to do it. Don't do that. If you are like me in that way, stop it. Procrastination is not helping you. I promise you, it's not. You may think, like I thought, that working under pressure, it really gets it. Like, no, it's just not good. Because you'll look at it 3 days later and go, oh, that's not very good. After you've stepped away from a little bit, you will realize how much is lacking. You need to work on it and then step back and look back at it with fresh eyes and go, ooh, I didn't notice that. You can't do that if you rush everything to the last minute. Because you have to remember, again, finishing the assignment on time is not the goal. Making good animation, a performance, mechanics, all the stuff that goes into animation, that's the goal, not just finishing it on time. So procrastination will not serve the main purpose of what you're doing. It's just gonna make you frustrated, and you're gonna end up getting a lot of feedback that you're like, yeah, I know that feedback, I can see it too. Well, then why didn't you deal with it? Because you didn't give it enough time to give yourself the time to deal with it. So stop it. On that note, you can't just check the boxes for your assignments. You can't just say, okay, I did a walk cycle, done. Bouncing ball, done. Pendulum, done. Your assignments are not modules that you check off and you move on and you never look back. If you do the bouncing ball, do it again. Do it 3 times. Do it of different weights. Do it with different sized objects. You can do that because if you're in school and you need to go to the next assignment, sure. Revisit it when you get a chance. Take your time and go back and do it a couple of times to make sure you actually understood it. Walk cycles will continue to haunt you for all time. No one likes them. You should do a couple of them, not just the one. To go back to the earlier question of when are you ready for a job, if you've only ever done 1 bouncing ball, 1 walk cycle, 1 character walk cycle, it's like a sneak or something, you're probably not ready for a job. Make sure you understand them all and make them more than just an assignment. Make it feel personal and interesting and come up with something cool to do to make them more fun. I know they're boring. Make them more fun. You may ask, but how do I do that? The next thing is planning. It is not a suggestion. Thumbnailing or reference or whatever your workflow is, or whatever person you have, a mentor, a teacher, or my videos, doesn't matter if it's a person or not, whatever you have been taught to do planning wise, do it. Commit yourself to it and spend some time really focusing on it. It's not just a thing that you do and then you say you've done, it's creating a roadmap. You are actually trying to plan out your shot and get an understanding of how you're going to tackle this. Where are the keys? What are the poses? How long are things gonna hold? What's the timing gonna feel like? That's planning, not just, I did some doodles with stick figures, all right, done. Because everybody wants to skip that stuff and get to the fancy stuff. Big flashy shots are not gonna help you stand out. They're going to highlight how little you know. The first shot I ever tried to really do, I didn't get anywhere on it. I tried to model an entire city block and import all these characters I downloaded from the internet. I was gonna do a big fight scene. I had never animated anything before. I was not ready for it, and I didn't set more than like 2 keys. I gave up. If I had continued trying to do this to impress people, I wouldn't have impressed anybody. Small assignments sound more boring, but they are more fun, they're easier to complete, you will learn a lot more from them, and they are more useful because they're little things that you can sprinkle into your demo reel versus spending months. If you're like, oh, okay, I made this big thing for a demo reel. It took me 6 months. Okay, so if you need to do another shot, you're gonna spend another 6 months on another giant shot that you're gonna then replace it or tack on at the end. Like, no, do lots of little things so you can grow faster and you can apply that to the bigger shot when it comes time. I mean, really challenge yourself to make something that's 30 frames long, 50 frames long, less than 100 frames. Don't let it get long and unmanageable. Keep it short. Something that'll work really well with that is to try new workflows. I have an entire video with 7 different workflows. Try them all. Give it a shot. It'll help you find out what works for you and tell you more about how you think when you animate. Don't jump too far ahead skill-wise and expect to make something good. I'm not saying don't try it. Feel free. Make whatever you want to make, but try to keep the stuff that you're making a manageable amount of time spent on these projects. That way, if you do want to try something, you don't bite off more than you can chew so that you have to give up and go, oh yeah, well, I wasted a month and a half making something that never even got finished. Make stuff that, you know, if you are going to jump ahead, you can finish it. And if it is something super above your abilities, just don't expect it to be a demo reel piece. Make it for fun, make it for you, make it because you want to, but just don't make it all about getting hired based on this one thing. And remember, you aren't aiming for exact realism, but entertaining believability. Stylization is what makes it fun to watch, but it's not something that you can use to hide bad posing or a lack of mechanics behind. At the end of the day, animation should hopefully be fun. You should only be doing this if you enjoy it. It's one of those jobs that you can't just do because you think it'd be a good idea. You have to actually really want to do it, and you have to like it, you have to love it because it takes so much. Animation is a creative, technical, and time-consuming job, and you have to treat it like one. It requires research and planning and long hours to make it, and it helps to understand other crafts that will come with time and practice, but acting, anatomy, art, filmmaking, physics, psychology, all that kind of stuff is going to play into animation. The entire point is to replicate or simulate life in a way that's entertaining and believable and fun to watch and interesting to behold. And you can't do that unless you are experiencing some life and you have stuff to put into your work. But it is work and it takes time. And if you are animating here and there and you're procrastinating and then you're doing it at the last minute, it's just not going to reward you in the way that you want. So if you are trying to get hired and get a job, you have to treat it like a job. Because when you get hired, you're going to be doing it 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, probably minimum most places. And a lot of people tend to forget that when they're starting out. But I hope this video helped. Bookmark it if you need to come back to it. If you feel like you're going to need a reminder of these things, send it to a friend who needs to hear these things as well. Keep each other accountable. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing. It's free and you can always change your mind. Also a link below to my Effort Animators class if you want to. Hey there, and welcome to the new space. It's a work in progress, but I hope you like it. I'm digging the new vibes. I'm Sir Wade, in case you're new here, and today we are going to talk about something that I feel like some people are going to feel a little targeted by. If that's you and you feel targeted by this video, it's probably good that you're here. We're going to discuss one of the bigger myths or lies in the animation industry, something that I don't believe to be true, even though I used to think that was the case. You know why you're here, you clicked the thumbnail, you saw the thing, it's who you know. I can already see in the minds of some people comments forming, getting ready to type, but it is, you have to know someone, I've been trying for years, blah, blah, blah. So here's the thing. There are generally two schools of thought when it comes to dealing with this idea.
There are basically two schools of thought.
The reason I'm not getting a job is because I don't know anybody. I don't have my in at a studio. If I could just make that connection, if I could just, network with the right people, then I could get in. And then there's the other people who know people at studios. And it's sort of this idea that, well, I know all these people, I know people, you'd think by now one of them would have gotten me a job. Why can't I get hired? And I talk to a lot of people who this is kind of a thing that they think about, and I want to sort of dispel this myth. But before I dive too deep into all this, I don't want to just say, this is untrue, blah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Because there's some merit to it, like there's some stuff that does work as a benefit to knowing people, sure. And we'll talk about that. But I want to give you a new quote, something to get rid of this quote, but to replace it with a better one. I was listening to a podcast recently, and this topic kind of came up, and I heard something I'd never heard before. But it was really interesting because Dante, the guy who plays Zuko in the show,
Rufio,
shared an insight that I had never heard before. It's not who you know, it's who knows you and what they think of you.
I don't care what everyone else says about you. You're pretty smart.
And that just blew my mind because I thought that was so much better, a better representation of what the idea is supposed to be. It's not about who you know in the industry who can get you a job. It's when someone has an opening, an opportunity, has a need for a certain skill set, do they think of you? Have they seen your work? Do they understand how you are to work with? And what do they think of you? As in, are you a jerk? Are you someone that people want to work with? That is a much more accurate way to frame that idea. And a lot of this comes back to networking. The idea of networking is usually so gross and skeezy and scummy and very LA weird entertainment industry vibes.
Oh, well, I produce and write and direct and edit film and television, but I've been known to act a little when the mood strikes.
I'm from Southern California. I grew up not in LA, but very close to LA. When I moved to LA, I did have the idea of oh, I'm gonna move to LA, I'm gonna go to these events, I'm gonna meet people, and it was sort of just community building. I wanted to come here and find a community of like-minded artists and people who shared my interests, because where I grew up, there was no animation. That wasn't a thing that I knew about. It wasn't until I left and actually learned about it in college that I started pursuing it. But when I moved into LA specifically, I was kind of hoping to network in the sense of just meeting other people who were in animation. And yeah, at the time I did think, because I'd been told it's who you know, you have to know someone. And so I was always looking out for those opportunities. Who can I talk to? And I don't think I was ever bad about it, but I think we all know what I'm referring to with kind of the gross side of it. And I've actually been on the receiving end of that too. I went to a birthday party for an animator who worked at DreamWorks at the time. I think he still works there. And one of the people who was there was about my age. At the time, I think we were about 22 or so. And this guy couldn't have cared less about me, which is fine. Whatever, do you. But I could tell he was not interested in talking to me. He was really interested in talking to certain animators that he knew were kind of higher up on the chain because he was trying to break into the industry. It was so apparent to me, and I wasn't even the person he wanted to talk to, and I could tell that I was not important enough for his attention because he was trying to figure out who could he talk to, who could he meet, who could help him grow and climb and get to where he wanted to be. Which is funny because at the time he didn't know I worked at DreamWorks, and of course I had no power. I could not have helped him get a job in what he wanted to do. But It was funny because then I kind of bumped into someone else from who I worked with. He's like, hey, like, blah, 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 something about at work tomorrow. And the guy was in the little circle of us, and he kind of looked at me, and it clicked in his mind, like, oh, you, and he even said it. He's like, oh, you work with them? I'm like, yeah, yeah. And after that, he was so interested in talking to me, and like, oh, you make videos? Oh, that's really cool. And after that, he was so interested in talking to me. Oh, you make videos? That's really cool. Oh, you have a YouTube channel? He pulls up my YouTube channel and starts playing my videos with the volume up, just like there, with us, like standing there. And I'm like, this is the most awkward and uncomfortable. Like, thank you for watching my videos. To anybody who's watching this right now, please, if you meet me in person, say hello. Let's hang out. Let's chat. Please don't pull up my videos and start like watching them next to me. Like, I make them for you. I don't want to watch them. I don't want to watch myself in a video. It just, And then you wanted to ask me all these questions, and like, dude, I could tell before that he had no interest in me because I couldn't help his career. And I still couldn't, but he thought I could. He thought I could maybe get him in or whatever. You know, we're the young guys, you know, help me in there. Like, you were so like rude to me before, and now you're just trying to use me. It was so obvious. It was very uncomfortable. Anyways, all of that to say, networking is usually a very skeezy, gross interaction thing where people go to conventions and they're trying to, you know, who can I meet? That will never help you, ever. There is a way to do that that's not gross, and you can totally go to things and, you know, talk to people online, and you can totally network in a healthy way. But for the purpose of this video, I don't want to talk about like how to network. I more want to talk about like, what is networking? Networking is not that. That's what we see it as, and it's very common to be that way, and there's a good way to do it, but that's not actually networking. Networking is supporting. Networking is just getting to know people. So it's not who you know, it's who you get to know, and not for the purposes of your agenda or, you know, your career or whatever. It's that when you meet people and get to know each other, and you don't have to become best friends, but you have a mutual respect, you have a shared vision, you work together collaboratively on a project, or you're just helpful, generally nice, you build a relationship with somebody, and you just generally feel that that person is a good person, someone who you'd like to work with in the future, or you wouldn't mind bumping into and chatting with, or just whatever. That mutual respect is very important, because when you each bring something to the table and can just have a human interaction and it's a positive relationship, that is the kind of bare minimum, and that's what leads to actual networking. Building a network or a community of people that you like to be around, generally, or want to work with in the future. A lot of people will know this as the couch cycle. That's not a real term, I just made that up. But it's that thing where if you have classmates from a school, or people you met at a workshop or an online program, or, you know, if I move to LA, I can establish something, some kind of a foothold, and then I have a friend who wants to move out. I'm like, hey, I've got a futon or a couch or like a living room, like feel free to stay for a bit, like while you look for a place yourself, try to get a job, interview. I've done that several times with a bunch of people. I went to Animation Mentor, which is the online animation school. I've talked about it a million times. If you sign up for Animation Mentor, please tell them I sent you. Thank you. I was in LA, and so when people wanted to come there, I had my futon, or I had a couch, or whatever. Now they have been here for years, and they do the same thing for their friends, and it's just the couch cycle. It's just where you're supporting each other. That's really all it is. And that's just kind of out of school or the entry level stuff. What's more important is when you actually work together on stuff. If you work on a production with somebody and you see their work ethic and you see what they can do and their skills and what they're putting in, and you go, wow, this person's really good and they're a joy to work with, that's where you get the, I can rely on this person, they work well with others, they're a creative problem solver. That's what we want on the team, and that's what I'm always gonna want on my teams, and so that's what sticks with you, and that's getting to know people in a professional setting. Because people think that networking is this VIP pass that'll get them into the industry. It's not. You can know people, that's fine, but until you show them what you can do and how what you do can benefit the studio or the project or whatever that they're working on, it doesn't matter. It's just a friendly relationship otherwise, which is also fine. Like, it's not like you're trying to just meet people to get jobs or something. Like, it's nice to know people. But it's not this thing that once you meet the artist from Pixar, you're gonna get in and fame and fortune awaits. It's not how it works. It's also really not how animation works. So yeah, bottom line is it's never this forced thing of go to this little soiree, this company event, and see who I can talk to, this convention. That's never going to actually like get you a job that way. Now, sure, you might meet a recruiter or meet an artist who knows of an opportunity. Like, you might find out things and ultimately get a job because of those interactions. Sure, that's totally normal. But that's not like it's who you know. You don't need that to break in. It's always about the work. It always comes back to the work. And I feel like I'm kind of the perfect person to give this advice to anybody who's struggling with this because I don't work at a studio. I am full-time YouTube animation stuff. Like, that's what I'm doing right now. When I first started this channel back in 2017, the goal of this channel was to show you everything. The creative journey of trying to become a professional animator. And for the first year or two, that was my main goal. And then I kind of switched up for a bit to just figure out, I want to try out this YouTube thing. And so that's what I've been doing for the last 3-ish years or something. My year of risk, if you remember that video, has turned into just trying to create a business on YouTube. And that's been super fun. Spoilers for some upcoming stuff, I'm gonna be trying to actually go back and get a job at a studio because I want to work on a production. I want to be part of a team sport. And I'm a great example of, I know lots of people, not in like a flexy way, but like, I know lots of people at lots of studios. Wonderful people who I've gotten to meet and I've had the pleasure of getting to know at various, you know, either acquaintance level or becoming very good friends with different people. And that's wonderful, but doesn't get me a job. I don't just get into Disney or Pixar because I know someone there. I don't just go to DreamWorks and become an animator because I worked there as a trainer for 2 years. It's not how it works. I need to demonstrate my capability as an animator if that's what I want to be doing at a studio. I have to show, hey, look, I can animate and I'm also nice, and so on. That's what it takes. And to the credit of the statement, like, yeah, it's who you know does benefit in some ways. It will be easier for me to find out about opportunities because I can message a friend and say, hey, are you guys gonna be hiring anytime soon? And more than likely I can get an answer back saying, oh yeah, you know, spring is a good time, apply then, or something. But at the same time, you can just go on the website. Like, they're required to post the job posting anyway. You know, whatever studio you're applying to has to post the job posting. So I might get a little bit more heads up if I were to ask around. It's not automatic that I'm just gonna always know before other people, but like, yeah, I might get tipped off by a friend like, hey, like, we're gonna be hiring soon, get your reel ready. But I should be doing that anyway, you know? So there are benefits. I'm I'm not gonna totally say that it's wrong, because there are benefits to knowing people. I can ask for feedback from friends, and I'll get some different insights and stuff, sure. But another thing is, like, resources are now available. Like this YouTube channel, the whole point of this YouTube channel was to create the educational resource for aspiring artists and animators and people who wanted to do art professionally. I was trying to build the resource that I wish I had in school, because this didn't exist. How many years ago when I started this channel, there was nothing. There were no tutorials, there were no guides, there were no like Q&As with people. There was nothing. Now there's more. There's this channel and there's various others that are great resources. But that's the thing, is like, before, people always said you had to know someone because there was no way to know anything. Now you can know stuff. Now you can ask people questions on Twitter, and you can go on Twitch streams, and you can come to YouTube channels and so on. So at this point, when I talk to people and they say, I can't get a job because I don't know anybody, or I should have a job because I know people, it's usually just an excuse or a cop-out. This is not always true, but it's often masking some kind of an excuse of really you're not working as hard as you should, or maybe you're putting your effort into something that's not actually helping you, because maybe you're putting in tons of work, it's just not really the right place to put the effort. Sometimes people just work really hard and it takes, we're all on our different paces. Sometimes it just does take longer for others to learn this stuff, and maybe you are working as hard as you need to be working. It's just taking a little bit longer. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But blaming not being able to get a job on not knowing somebody doesn't work, because there are plenty of people who've gotten into the industry back in the day and recently who don't have any contacts. It's just their work speaks for itself. Get them jobs. And all of this ties into the idea of luck, because you can really go either way. You'll have people who are like, you need to be lucky to find out about the things and, the right place at the right time. And then other people who are like, no, it's all about the hard work. It really is a blend of both, but it's not like you can just rely on being lucky. But again, I'm a really good example of this point as well. I got my job at DreamWorks a couple years ago because I met somebody at a convention who worked at DreamWorks and told me about the job opportunity. I didn't know about that department. I didn't know that that type of job existed, and I didn't know that I'd be a good candidate for it. So it was very lucky that I met this individual. So yeah, like there's some luck and there's some good that I knew somebody, but it's not that I just got lucky and then that was it. I wouldn't have gotten the job had I not had the experiences and the resume and kind of the background and the technical and the teaching stuff that I was already doing to then actually get me in. So luck is really when hard work meets opportunity. The opportunities you can't control, the timing and where things are and when things happen, and all of that can work out really well, and that's the luck part. But you have to also do what you can do to be ready for those opportunities. Because if I told you in this video right now, like, hey, everyone watching, like, there's an opportunity at Disney right now, go apply, and they're taking lots of people, or something. And again, I don't work for Disney, so that may not be true. That's probably not true. But let's just say I said that and it were accurate. Are you ready to apply right now? Do you have a demo reel that's ready to go? I don't. I'm working on it. But the hard work must meet the opportunity in the same way that it's nice to know people, but ultimately it's about the work and about your relationships with people. It's not the networking stuff. It's about being supportive and friendly and capable. Hopefully all of that helps to show that it's not who you know, it's who knows you and what they think of you. It's who you get to know and how hard you're willing to work to meet those opportunities when they pop up. I think that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did. It does help a lot with the whole YouTube algorithm, so I appreciate it. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video as I continue to decorate the space. And feel free to leave a comment down below of any of the things you've heard about the animation industry that you don't know whether or not they're true. If you want to discuss them, maybe I'll make another video about some other stuff, other myths that you may have heard in school or wherever. But yeah, thanks for watching. Again, I'm Sir Wade, and I'll see you in the next video.